Okay, welcome to the webinar here. It's great to have you. And we're going to start right now. Today's topic is webinar marketing engines that convert into customers. My name is Sunil Bhaskaran, and I co-lead a program with Bill Bellew, who's probably on this call. And he might pipe in from time to time if he has any input, which I'm sure he might actually from time to time. It's great to have you again. Let's start getting into the webinar itself. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to type them into the chat box or the Q&A box at the top of your screen or in your menu system. And I may not be able to get to everybody's questions, but I'll do my best to do so in the Q&A section towards the end of this webinar. Again, great to have you all here. All right, so before we actually start, just one very, very important logistical item. And it is, I'm going to invite you all to turn off everything that's operating in the background that might be distracting to you. So it might be other computer programs, or your chat, or your Skype, or your email, or your music, or any other programs. I invite you to really use this time in the next hour, hour and 15, or hour and a half, however long we go, to really use it for your time, to have it be a valuable time for you so that you can focus on this webinar that will give you some great secrets that could help you really turn around your business and help you fulfill on dreams and goals. So it's my invitation for you to do so, to turn off everything in the background. I have a couple of questions for you. Some of you have emailed me in the last couple of days and have indicated that you really don't have a sales funnel that keeps feeding your business with the right customers. And I really underline the word right customers. So if you're looking for such a system, then you're certainly in the right place today in this webinar. Certainly in the right place if you're tired of going through the ups and downs of success in your marketing and you want to have a more stable but also more of an upward trend in your marketing and your sales results. The question for you is, is it difficult or challenging to keep up your energy in business, marketing, and sales? Are you disenchanted with the results you're currently having in your sales and conversions to customers? Have you been in business for a while, but the business, marketing, and sales is just not quite where it could be or should be for you? Are you happy with the profits and the results that you're having right now? Are you getting burnt out or not excited about the systems of marketing you have now, or are you just getting bored with them? Now, some of you have indicated you're doing pretty well, but you're capable of doing more, and certainly this webinar would be for you. Do you have a system that's capturing your leads coming in to you online or offline for that matter? And is it capturing your leads efficiently? What has stopped you in the past? So the question, is for you is, what are the things, what are the obstacles, the things that may be slowing you down or completely having you feel stuck? And invite you to really listen to this webinar through the filter of how you can resolve those particular issues, things that stop you. So, and I know some of you have indicated really looking for a breakthrough. Some of you have dealt with a lot of the basics in the business, but you're looking at what's next. Some of you are starting out, some of you are in the midterm of a business, and I have content here that will apply to all your cases, and I'm looking forward to sharing that. More questions here just to build more, get you to think more about what you could get out of this webinar. Do you want this year to be better than last year or more of the same? And if you want it to be better, specifically, where do you want it to be better in terms of your sales generations or your pipeline generations? How do you want it to go? Do you want it to be better, not just in terms of more money, but all the other things in life that matter to you? What's the point of creating a webinar system or a marketing system, but it impacts your life in a way that you don't have time for everything else? So what are the things that really matter to you that you like to impact in a positive way this year? You want to create a sustainable and proven business. And this word sustainable, it's not about environment necessarily, but sustainability is about having a business that can keep growing and feeds you, and not the other way around, where it sucks you dry. So a sustainable business that won't leave you burnt out. and has you be a proven entity in your market. If you're spending too much time spinning your wheels and you wish to have a breakthrough in terms of your time, having more, well, having time that's focused and producing results, then you're certainly in the right place today. And if you wish to sell more with a system that works for you and without the hype, then you're certainly in the right place as well. If you're sick and tired of being overwhelmed, certainly here is the right place for you. Some of you are starting out and launching a business. I've talked to you, some of you in the last 2 weeks actually. And certainly, like I tell everybody, there are mistakes that you can avoid and there are mistakes that you can't. It's just unpredictable. Life is too unpredictable to control everything, obviously. But the mistakes that you can avoid are the ones that you want to learn about as much as possible up front. If you're looking to get an engaged and inspired audience who buys, then certainly in the right place today. And most importantly for me, and certainly for a lot of my clients, is if you wish for more satisfying results and a lifestyle that reflects that, then I think that's a really great place to be in, and you certainly deserve that. The reality, though, is that there are three real fears that reduce inspiration and tend to stop people. It's not really the fears that you have that stop you, but it's how you relate to the fears that really reduce inspiration or stop. So one fear is my systems or your systems will fail. Second fear is your customers will fail to see the value that you can bring. The third fear is that you'll burn yourself out. And this is quite a big fear for a lot of people based on the surveys and the research and the conversations that I've had with people out there, pretty much across the board. There's this fear of burning yourself out. So it's almost like this edge that people have. On the one hand, they feel like they have to work really hard. And I'm not against working hard, but I'm totally against on the other side, which is where you work yourself to such a point where you can't operate efficiently or be creative and enjoy your business or have time for the people around you. That's not a good way to run business. So what about you? In your own life, what are the concerns, challenges, and goals that you like to do? And I'm going to invite you to really listen to this webinar from that place of how to resolve those things that are bugging you or disconcerting you or keeping you up at night. So what we're going to learn, or what we're going to explore today, are three things. First thing is the mistakes most people make in webinars. And when you set up webinars or when you do webinar systems, mistakes that you want to avoid. Okay. The second is that you want to learn the basic starting blocks to get you going to develop your webinar system. And thirdly, and most importantly, how can what I'm sharing today fit into your overall business marketing plan and long-term vision? Because you don't want to just think tactically. And I'm going to present some tactics today, but you also want to think strategically in the long term. If you're going to do a webinar system or any kind of sales system or marketing system or business system or even a business, how does it fit into your long-term vision? Because if you don't think long-term, you're going to think too myopically or too short-term, or you're going to be too short-sighted. You're only going to see the next 2 feet ahead of you. And that's not a good way, I feel, to run a business or life for that matter. You want to keep looking further down the tracks. Where you're heading, are these tracks taking you to where you want to go? If you want to go to Paris, you certainly don't want to end up in Beijing. And if you want to go to Beijing, you certainly don't want to go to Paris. I know some of you are going, I want to go to both places. Well, you could, but if you want to go to both places, you got to start looking long term. There's a gift at the end of this webinar, and it's going to be a really good gift primarily because it's going to be the most relevant gift I think I can give most of you. Because we're going to have about an hour and 15 minutes here. It's going to be valuable for you. You're going to see a lot of stuff for yourself. At least that's what I intend for you to have as an experience. But you see, life doesn't end with a webinar. Obviously, there's so much more that you'll have to deal with, and you probably have more questions. And the real beauty of what I'm going to share with you today is that it's customizable to each person. And you really, really have to think about how it's customized to you. You don't want to just take a turnkey system off the shelf somewhere and expect it to work for you overnight. Probably not going to happen. So there's going to be questions that you're probably going to have, and I invite you to really question because and ask those questions on how these things can really pertain to you at your market, in your style, your personality, your timelines, your availability of time, etc. And those are very, very good questions to ask. I've been coaching people now, mentoring businesses and running businesses since 1991. And the one thing I've seen a lot of stuff in the coaching industry, and there's a lot of good stuff out there, certainly. But the number one reason why a lot of people do a lot of programs and then end up not doing anything is because they don't customize what they learn to themselves and make it work in a way that's workable, that makes sense and is realistic. So this gift that I'm going to offer you at the end of this webinar is going to help you really get past the issue of customizing to yourself and making sure that it works for you. Okay. So I'm going to share some breakthroughs here. Again, all this is relevant to what I'm sharing because two things. Obviously, I want to build some credibility with you. But the most important reason I'm sharing some is because these are all part of the lessons that I want you to see. These are successes, but you also want to listen to when I share the content on how we got to these successes. And what we share really works with you. It really works. Everything that Bill and I talk about at our meetups really works if you apply it. And the number one question is, will you apply it? So these are some of the things. I'm not going to go through all of them, but those of you who attend my webinars every week will notice that this list is growing. It's actually becoming a little unmanageable in terms of our success and the things that we're creating. But these are some of the top things. Bill is now currently number 6 on a new, really popular news site that's giving Huffington Post a run for its money as well. So he's a number 6 person as a contributing editor. It's quite a big thing. He and I talked on Sunday, and there's a good chance he's going to be number 1 by the end of the month, which is quite significant for us. And again, a lot of the techniques we talked about, including the techniques we talk about here in the webinar, pertain to how you can attain such credibility for yourself in your own industry. We just got approached about a couple of weeks ago by a French tech group sponsored by the French government, and we're doing a joint venture with them that came through all our marketing and the presencing that we did and our branding, etc. Bill's getting way more invitations now to speak internationally. Our meetup size is now way more than 18,780. That was, I think, Sunday's figures. I'm pretty sure it's more than that by now. We've built quite a lot of networking and a lot of and a pretty good market. Our network is growing organically at about 750 people per month, and this is relevant target market people. We're talking about solopreneurs, business people like you, etc. So again, I'm sharing this to give you a sense that this stuff really works, and it's really good to share this stuff because it's really solid. It feels really solid. It's what we've really done. We've worked really hard, but we've worked also very smart to get to this point. And if there's one thing I want you to get out of this webinar is the need to work smart and not necessarily work for long hours. You don't necessarily have to do that if you set things up right. It's always a short-term period, initial period, but you may have to do a lot more work. But if you do that right, you set it up right, there's a good chance that you'll have less work to do in the coming months and years. Okay, but it wasn't all that great. When I first started, it's a photograph of me about 1991 or so. At that time we didn't have any webinars, but I did what's called the 4-foot rule. 4-foot rule is you talk to anybody within 4 feet about your business. And I was working as an engineer at that time, but what I started was the Sideline software consulting business. And I just did what everybody else did who didn't have a mentor at that time, which was to talk to everybody I could. And I did a lot of door knocking. I was very excited about doing it. And I literally went door knocking to companies, would come in during my lunch hours or after in the early part of the evening when I got some time off from my work. And I would just approach people one-on-one like that. And it was a lot of work, and I got 1 or 2 business. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't good business. And I was beginning to feel very discouraged. But that was what I was dealing with at that time. And I didn't have the tools to lead even, silent prayer with 2 other people. I wasn't really, you could say, very good at talking with people or selling people an idea or a concept or a product or service. So it's mostly hard work. And most of it is brought on by guilt, frustration, resignation, and fear. I call these the four horses of death. The guilt, frustration, resignation, and fear. It's not those really by itself. It's really how you relate or interact with your guilt, frustration, resignation, and fear. Because we're all humans. And that occurs to everyone. I assure you. I've coached some of the great people out there. Some really awesome leaders who are very competent, very confident. But we all have our moments. And so hard work is sometimes a cover up for our inability to really deal with these things. And that's certainly what I was doing. I was doing a lot of hard work to try and get by. And it wasn't really working very well. And so by happenstance, I never actually heard of a coach, a business coach at that point, but a friend of mine introduced me to this, who turned out to be my first mentor. And I started working with him. And one of the first breakthroughs is really getting clear on target markets and pain points. Now, when it comes to webinar systems, you got to start with the basics. And the basics are really looking at your target markets and pain points. Now, I know a lot of you want to have a quick solution. And I'm telling you, I feel for you. And to a certain extent, you can get the quick solutions. But if you don't think through your target markets and pain points, and you're stuck in just trying to get to a quick solution without trying to look at your target markets and pain points or problems or challenges that your target markets have, then you're not really going to be effective in your marketing. Whatever system you use just won't be effective, or won't be as effective as it could be. And your business development cycle is probably going to take a couple of years. And I speak from experience in this, and looking at other people that I've coached as well. Second thing I learned was how to craft what to say. So I felt good about saying it. It was honest and it was effective. And it was quite remarkable in working with a mentor how much shorter my elevator introductions got. Because I would go on and on talking about what I did, how I did it, and all the details that I did, and how great it was. But when I distilled it down to about a few sentences that got people intrigued, because I learned and surveyed what they really wanted, and when I could really feel good about saying that I can solve their particular specific problems, then two things happened. My confidence started increasing, and secondly, the confidence that people had in me also increased. And so if you don't have this basics at some point in your process of generating your marketing, it's going to be a pretty tough road to hoe. The third lesson was in generating structures and systems to firstly create a pipeline. And webinar systems can be a very good pipeline for you. There are other pipelines too, pipelines that create a flow of customers or prospects to you. And if you're new to this business, don't worry, don't fret about these terms or trying to understand everything perfectly. It'll come to you over time. But as the more you engage in these discussions and these webinars, more you engage in, with me, the more likely you are to get very clear on what this pipeline exactly means for you in your business and your life. The second thing is to convert or have a system that converts people coming into being paying customers, and to do so efficiently and effectively. Now, that doesn't mean that you have, a set of machines that manipulates people in an out of integrity way to do that. Don't believe in doing that. But you want to have an effective system that really indicates clearly, messages to people what their problems are that you're facing that they may not be completely aware of, and help you crystallize it for them. And then at the same time, crystallize the strong possibility that you can help them resolve those issues. And that's important to really understand, again, before you start designing your webinars and doing webinars. It's a good thing to really spend some time creating your pipeline, understanding what the pipeline is, and how to convert people coming in. So a couple more lessons here, and these all pertain to the design of your webinar. Very, very important to understand and learn. The first thing is, you want to understand your strategy. Be clear, at least have a starting point in your strategy. You may not have a perfect strategy. Nobody does, by the way, have a perfect strategy. And I have, I'm in two masterminds with some of the top people in my industry, at least, doing really well. And, we all are the first to acknowledge we really don't know everything. It's impossible to do so. It makes life a lot more interesting and engaging. But there are some basics to understand. One of the basics is to really look at your target market and keep looking at whether your target market's the right one for you. Do you have enough passion for that target market? Do you understand what the pain points are in that target market? Because if you do a webinar to the wrong target market, that could not be very good. If I'm doing this webinar and if I targeted the Girl Scouts of America, that may be good to a certain point for the more ambitious Girl Scouts, but it'll probably fall real flat. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating, but for some of the people I've seen out there, who come to me in some of the free sessions that I do with people, what I'm seeing is people have the wrong target markets. They're just going after the wrong target markets, which increases your time and at work and your stress levels. Okay. You want to make sure you get the right target markets. And then once you have the right target markets and you understand their challenges, then you create and design the offers that will make sense for those target markets. And see, if you don't have the right offer, your webinar is probably going to fall flat. At best, it'll be a nice documentary for people to watch. Oh, isn't that a nice documentary? It was very interesting, a lot of information, but not really relevant to me. And there's nothing I can really do about it because it sounded really good, but I'm not sure how it pertains to me. So you're going to have the right offer, the right thing that makes sense for people that will be pertinent to the webinar content, but also create something next for them to do. Then you want to create, once you have the right offers, then you can work backwards and design the right systems and the sales funnels. And that, in your webinar, you must keep in mind what your sales funnel looks like. So not only does it serve people, but it serves you as well. It has to be a partnership when you run webinars, where you win and other people win. If you have it one-sided, where you win and other people don't, then you have a documentary. You have a one-sided show where it's all about you, but if it's all about other people, that's fine too. You'll serve other people, but then you won't win yourself. So it's really important to create a sales funnel that is a win-win. You want to plan, and for those of you who are perfectionists, you want to make sure that your goals are clarified, and you don't have to have them be perfect. My experience, when I work with people, nothing's ever perfect initially, but boy, they get perfect as time goes on. And they get completely perfect on the last day of your plan or your objectives. Because, that's really, your plan gets more and more perfect the more frequently you refine it. Because it's impossible to think of everything. Those of you who are overwhelmed, please take heart in this. This is the way to really run your business and have it really work in a realistic manner. Because it's impossible. If you're trying to get everything done in 1 week and 1 day, it probably ain't going to happen. Sometimes it's better to get it done than perfect. And done may be just like halfway done for now. That may be the best you can do right now, but you're going to move the ball forward as you go along. That's important to understand. The third is to learn the art and science of focus. So developing the webinar systems, once you get a design, it's going to take a bit of focus and practice every day. You got to work on it a little bit every day or every few days at least, so you can fine tune what you're learning, apply it a little bit at a time, and build up your system that way. And the focus should also include time to build and increase the skills and get educated and trained. I can spend an hour a week on learning other people's trainings and different aspects of business, and it makes a huge difference when I do that. The fourth lesson is in really mitigating risk versus return on investment, especially when it comes to selecting your target markets and the webinar system you want to use or the design. So, there may be 7 or 8 choices in front of you right now for some of you in how you want to run your business, and you're kind of stuck in making that decision. And I feel for you because sometimes it may be pretty complicated. But if you're stuck in making those decisions, one way to look at how to approach these decisions is to look at each option and weigh the risk versus the return on investment in each option. So return on investment means how much you're going to get back based on how much you're putting in. So how many dollars are you going to make in the next year compared to how many dollars you're putting in and how much time you're putting in? Is it worth the return on investment and the risk? So you want to make sure that you mitigate and plan for that. Okay. The next lesson is that the breakthroughs really come with consistent application. So if you want to develop a new and better sales and marketing mindset, So it really requires a lot of attention, dialogue, reflection, and practice. You know, and if you do it on a consistent basis, if you're doing a little bit again every week, every day, it's a good chance you're going to create a breakthrough. Now, I keep saying this every week, and the reason I repeat this is because repetition is good. If you really look at this, some of you may say, well, I already know this a little bit, but most of most breakdowns and lack of breakthroughs occurs because people don't see what they don't know that they don't know. Now that sounds kind of weird, but it's the truth. Most breakthroughs occur when you look at what you don't know that you don't know. What are the blind spots in your business? What do I keep hearing but ignoring? Oh, that sounds like a cliche, but most cliches, unfortunately, are actually the truth. And if you actually apply and follow the cliches, they actually work. So invitations really look and see, okay, how can I really use what Sunil's sharing here in my business and in my life? So all of these lessons and practices were in the background of a powerful vision that I took seriously and wanted to make real. And you see, when you run a webinar system or a set of webinars, you really want to be clear about your vision, where you want to take this business, how far you want to go with it. What is life going to look like 1 year out, 5 years out? I have 100-year plan, which supersedes my life, and I'm actually really inspired about it. I may not be around for the next 100 years. I'm going to try and be around for the next 100 years, but it may not occur. But I certainly wanted my vision to continue, with my nephews and their children and their grandchildren. And you may have maybe not so grandiose of a vision, but it's still a vision. It's still something important for you, and that has to lead the charge for you. Or it's one way to really stay motivated is to have that vision really lead the charge instead of all the concerns, etc. you may have. Your concerns will probably get resolved the more powerful your vision is. So the trick is really to create a powerful enough vision that keeps you going on a day-to-day basis. So all that short-term suffering, everything I shared with you, really paid off. After I hired my coach, it took me a while, but I had a huge breakthrough in early part of 1996. This is a picture of me in Maui. I was going to take 3 months off, but it turned into a year and a half. And I spent a couple of weeks here in Maui, just driving around, really have no intention, no agenda, nothing. It was just every day, it was just different, exciting, meeting different people, hanging out with the locals, having a really good time. But I really did decide when I first started out in the beginning of 95 to start my business, eventually sell it, that I was going to work really hard. And I was working part-time as a consultant. I had ridiculous hours. I wouldn't do it the same way probably, but I made up my mind I was going to do short-term suffering. I paid a lot more for my coach and brought him in as, he was really a partner with me as well in the business. And, I made up my mind that we were going to really focus on this. And it was great. Doing that was highly focused, enjoyable. There were breakdowns certainly in the way. But, I always had that vision. One of the things that I wanted to do was go to travel in Ireland. And I did that eventually, but I had this beautiful vision of going through the Emerald Hills of Ireland, driving around. And I tell you, all that vision of having that freedom, joy, and creativity certainly drove me forward in that year. So hope that inspires you to really take on, some of these things I'm going to share with you. Just a couple more things. Again, more lessons from my previous clients that work with me. Archana here, who you see on the computer screen. What the biggest thing most people hire me to do or help them do is to decipher the complexity. All of you have complexities in your business, trying to figure out decisions. And, it's almost daily complexities when you first start out. The complexities get less as you go along, but they're still complicated. And so deciphering the complexities, identifying the priorities and focusing on those and keeping your expenses down and looking at return on investment, good place to start from. And Archana certainly learned a lot about that. And she didn't spend a lot on expensive advertising and all. She didn't have to. And she's doing really well. I just connected with her about 2 weeks ago. Still doing really well. In fact, expanded the business. Really, really great person. And the primary lesson was in making sure that you had the right packages for the right markets. And that's important to really understand. Second testimonial here, Eric Hess and his wife, Sadie, and actually Joanne and Jay, they were all the partners in this business called Compass Care. It's still around, it's still growing. Experienced a 150% increase in size. The reason was that they exploded so much in that time frame was, and this is the big lesson for you, is to make sure that your vision and your goals are aligned and going in the same direction. Now, this pertains to when you're doing webinars as well. I'm harping on this because these are some of the basics you got to get down, get really clear about. Because if your visions and goals are not aligned, your webinars are not going to show up very well because people will detect that you're not quite in the same track. You won't sound as excited, you won't sound as passionate, and that excitement and passion plays a good part, not the whole part, but a good part in being able to sell and demonstrate value. Charlotte Jacobs, started working with her more than about a decade ago, more than that probably. And when I first started working with her at that point, I promised her that I would triple her income in 90 days. Now, I could say that with a lot of confidence because I did a little bit of analysis based on what she told me about her current market. And one of the things I saw was that she had too many markets she was trying to focus on. She's marketing to too many people. And she had too many things in her plate that weren't really generating income for her. So we cut it down to very, very few objectives. I think, if I remember right, there were about 2 or 3 max that we had. And we just focused on those objectives, and voila, we more than tripled our income in 90 days. To be honest with you, quite straightforward. I was very confident because I knew, it's just mathematically, it's just going to happen. And of course there were things that we had to work on in terms of how she converted, how she sold, how she presented herself, and so it really worked. So really, sometimes less is more. So if you're getting overwhelmed with setting up webinar or your markets or your marketing systems, it's a good place to look at. What are the objectives that are really going to make the most sense? Now, you're probably going to be troubled by this because you're going to feel like I got to do 15 things, really, because it's 15 things I got to do, Sunil. Come on. If I don't do that, I'm going to be struck down by lightning. But, I assure you, A, you're probably not going to get 15 things done. B, you're probably going to be way better off if you get 4 things done or less, because the quality of your objectives is going to go up, and your results and your impact of your results are probably going to go up as well. And thirdly, you're going to build up for the long term. This is the greatest relevant breakthrough for me. Those of you on the computer can see this. This is a snapshot of my calendar, my actual calendar in November of last year. And my calendar pretty much looks like this, except it's shrunken a little bit in terms of time because I'm willing to do a project right now for the short term, but it's still I'm still getting about 18 hours of free time. And this is important to understand. Now, why am I sharing this with you about a webinar system? Because if you get a good webinar system and as good a set of marketing systems, then you're going to get closer to this kind of calendar where you have more free time. If you notice, there's blocks of free time in here that you can do lots and lots of great stuff. And this is what I'm inviting you is this kind of world where you have a lot more freedom on your calendar. You can talk about freedom all day long. I hope you don't. But you can do something about it, and this is one measure: is your calendar. If you have free time on your calendar, if you love working and your calendar still means something when you look at it and it's not overwhelming, then I'd say you have freedom. And this freedom gives me the opportunity to really create meaning in my life that's positive and great for me and relevant to me. Those of you again on the computer can see this. These are the things that I've added new photographs from last week. I live very close to the water here in Santa Cruz, California, and I get to walk around from time to time and enjoy the lovely ocean and the pier. There's a photograph of me talking to a seagull. So having a good time with my wife and my friends. And for some of you, this may be important and may have importance in other areas of your life. But what's the point of having a business if it doesn't feed your life? And so my invitation to you is really, when you create systems, to really start looking from there. So the question for you: what will your greatest relevant breakthrough be for yourself? And this is an important context to have. And context is critical if you're going to set up anything. The reason why a lot of people fail is because they don't have the right context. So there's nothing really driving them that's big enough, that's juicy enough. Some of you are bored. Some of you are in anxiety. This is your source of freedom. If you find the right context, and that takes a bit of work and dialogue with a coach or a mentor or someone you trust who can help you create what that relevant breakthrough is for you. And once you have that, you can talk about the most boring stuff on a webinar, but your excitement and passion and truth will show through that. So a couple of things here, start getting into the nitty-gritty of a webinar and a webinar system. These are some of the mistakes that you want to avoid. Mistake number one is forgetting the basics. The basics include the vision, target markets. You want to be clear about your target markets for your webinar. You want to be clear about the pain points for each target market that you're going after. You want to have at least a simple funnel to start with. And a funnel means how you're going to lead people from not knowing you to trusting you to doing business with you. Not everybody who comes to you right away is going to do business with you in the first 30 seconds. Probably not going to happen. Be a rare occurrence. It's welcomed, but it's probably not going to happen. So you want to design at least a basic funnel. A basic funnel for me, in my example, is so the funnel looks like people come to the meetup page, they sign up for the webinars, they come to the webinar, and then they sign up for the next session. In our case, it's a complimentary strategy session that you apply for. You come to the strategy session, you find out more about the program and what we do, but I also find out more about the challenges and the objectives and see if we're a match. And then that leads to a client being formulated. Now, there are other funnels that we have that are much shorter and much sweeter, but this is one funnel that you have. And you want to at least think through what that funnel or process of leading people through to being a client will look like for you. And you want to start with at least a basic draft or a first draft of what that would look like. Mistake number two is ignoring the stages of webinar marketing. There are 3 stages that you have to focus on. And the 3 stages are pre-webinar, during the webinar, and post-webinar. And each stage should be simplified. Each stage is necessary, but you want to customize these stages to you and your own style in your own business. And that's important to understand, that you want to understand that the business occurs in stages. If you're shooting a rocket into space that's going to go on, sailing towards another planet, you want to understand, that there are stages to this. It's not just going to shoot off a rocket and it's going to go forever. Probably won't happen, So you want to understand the nature of stages so you can build a business that's more sustainable. So the first stage, the pre-webinar stage, there's an email sequence. Those of you who are on this webinar, you've probably seen my email sequence. I keep reminding people about the webinar. And some of you may say, well, it's too many times, or will my market really, the truth is people complain about emails, but for the most part, emails are welcome. The truth is, because not everybody is going to opt out or mark you as spam, etc. There are still going to be enough people who want to get your emails. They signed up for you, and they'll want to see the reminders. They may not come to your webinar right away, but they will at some point. More you do the email sequence or the reminders, or however you choose to do it, may not be email, be other ways as well, then the more likely people will show up on your webinar. And that's something to really understand, and you have to design that. It doesn't have to be overwhelming for your customers, but it needs to be something that serves them, gives them the right amount of information, and nudges them in the right direction of going to a webinar that's going to serve them. During your webinar, you want to be clear about your presentation sequence and that you're building up towards something that's going to sell people effectively, but also serve them. So you want to make sure that both are present during the presentation sequence. Then there's a sequence after the webinar, which is, again, a series of communications. Now, in this particular market, in the market that I'm addressing right now, we don't do a lot of that because just from experience, we don't do a lot of follow-up. But for some of our other markets, we do more follow-up because it just makes more sense. And so you see, this is customized for each situation. But basically, it's a follow-up sequence to make sure people, again, are served and they have the opportunity to buy your product or service after the webinar. And if you don't do that, or if you don't think through that possibility of that, then you may be leaving quite a bit of money on the table as well. Third mistake is that a lot of people talk about how their product works or service works, rather than what their service or product provides. People who are buying from you want to know more so about what you're providing rather than how you provide it. Now, to a certain extent, they'll want to hear about how you do it, but they're way more infinitely interested in what you provide. So, an example is if you're selling vacation packages, you don't want to talk about how you're going to get to Hawaii. Oh, John, you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and get on a bus that's going to take you to San Jose airport, and then you're going to get on a plane. No, you don't want to hear about that. You want to hear more so about what you're going to get when you get to Hawaii. Oh, John, you and your wife are going to have a special luau on the beach just for you guys, specially catered by a French chef. And it's whale season, so you'll probably see some humpback whales uh, jumping out of the water, and your wife will have a great romantic experience with you. Now that's more selling, and it's about selling the what rather than the how. It's important to understand that. Fourth mistake is when you start too complicated or too ambitious. And this applies to most people we work with. It's just they start with too many things in their plate and you fail to chunk down and ramp up. See, if you are too overwhelmed to start with, then your ramping up or the acceleration of your business is probably going to slow down. See, that's the trouble with being too ambitious, because if you're unrealistic about your ambitions, then it's very difficult to ramp up. You got to be smart and about how you're building it and ramping up. The majority of people who get excited about stuff, they want to, they just blow their energy out too soon, or their resources out too soon. So what you want to do is you want to really look at chunking down. And one of the things I work with my clients is to help them chunk down and calm down some of the stress, and then be able to focus more and build up on what's more relevant. So a couple of starting blocks here when you're designing the webinar. And what I'm sharing with you, I promise you, works because it goes down to the rudimentary basics of being a human being running a business rather than a robot. So you want to start with a vision, because if you have the vision and you get more and more excited about the vision, then your long term looks bright. The brighter your long term looks, the more you're able to deal with the inevitable breakdowns and decisions that you'll have to face in designing your webinar or marketing system in the short term. So it's important to be clear about your vision. Where are you going? It may seem like a series of hills up ahead, but you can see this beautiful sky up ahead and a different country that's more like Shangri-La. You want to define what Shangri-La is going to look like for you. Secondly, you want to start defining your target market or target markets. And target markets are usually defined by demographics and psychographics. Demographics is, characteristics of a population. Where do they live? What gender they are? What their salaries are? What kind of work they do, etc. Their decision makers, etc. Psychographics is more about personality. So you want to start defining your group of target markets and really focus it. The more targeted it is, smaller sometimes it is, the more likely you are to have less competition, less sales expenses, and more results. So you want to be clear about what you're targeting. Now, this is not going to be perfect right off the bat. It almost never is. And it's really, you could have a moving target as you go along. But it's important to being conscious about your target market as you develop your webinar system. Another starting block is to design your funnel, like I talked about. What are the stages you're going to bring people from being prospects to inquiring into your business, to creating a proposal, if that's how you do your business, to creating new customers? How do you do that? For each of you, probably going to have a different kind of funnel, slightly different, sometimes vastly different. It just depends on what you really need. Before, starting block. You want to create your pipeline source. Some of you probably already have pipeline sources. People are constantly surprised when they have the first conversation with me. How many pipeline sources do you already have? Maybe your current friends and family, your previous clients, the people you've talked about who are interested and care about you, who can start referring to you. Now, this is at the basics. But others of you may have already been doing business for a while. You already have a list of customers and clients who may be able to refer. And if you have a good referral machinery and you have the right kind of webinar that can create that kind of pipeline and strengthen that kind of pipeline, then you've got a good pipeline source. So you want to identify and strengthen your pipeline sources. The next starting block is to plan out your time for the 3 stages and the time to execute all these 3 stages for every webinar. So if you're planning on doing a webinar every week, you want to make sure you have the time to design the stages and then to implement it. Now, in my case, oftentimes I'm planning 3-4 weeks ahead, sometimes even way earlier upfront for a webinar. And I'll start designing the webinar about 3 or 4 weeks ahead. And I'll literally start working on the PowerPoints, looking at, how can I lead people from not knowing me to being familiar, to being intrigued, to taking the next offer. And then the execution is run by my teams now. But in the early days, when I first started doing some of this, and I didn't have a full team, I had somewhat of a team, but not a full team, I blocked out times to do the emails, redo the emails, look at numbers, and fine tune, etc., etc. So it's really critical that you plan out your time as much in advance for designing those 3 stages I talked about: the pre-webinar, the presentation itself, and the post-webinar. Some of you are already familiar with email systems that you use. You want to set up the emails in the autoresponders or the automatic emails that go out. So once you set it up, you're done. You don't have to do anything during that week itself, but you want to start planning for the next webinar and then next 4 webinars out. And the more advanced planning you do like that, the more likely you are to make fine-tuning and adjustments to your webinar system so everything starts working a lot better. I can't overemphasize your need to plan this out. For a lot of our clients, we do what's called an editorial calendar for the year. So they plan out all their messaging that's going to go out for the year. What's beautiful about it is that you can start planning for all the great times to market. Valentine's, for some of you, are relationships coaches. Or, if you offer products, Christmas time, you got to plan like 3-4 months in advance if you really want to make more money out of it and don't want to leave money on the table. So you got to plan out that time for execution in those stages. All right, a couple more important points here. How is this going to fit into your overall business marketing plan and long-term vision? Okay, I got a simple acronym here, SBB. That's SBB. That starts simple, build up, and then set up the foundation for a breakthrough. SBB. So start simple, build up, and then breakthroughs will be created once you start doing that. You got to build up to the breakthrough. Breakthroughs don't necessarily happen overnight. It could happen overnight. Open to it, certainly open to it for you, but more than likely you want to start simple, build up, and create the foundation. So step 1 again is the target market. And this is probably where you want to start. You should look at the longer term strategy. If you start with how much money you want to make 5 years out from now, then it's going to become more imperative for you to look at the target markets, especially the current target markets and the markets you have is not giving you where you want to be in 5 or 10 years from now. So the longer term you look, the more likely you are to find target markets and incentivize yourself to look for target markets. So when we coach people, we start looking 1 year out. With some of our clients, we start looking 5 years and 10 years out. Some of our clients want to do an exit strategy 5 years out from now. In other words, they want to sell the business and move on. So it becomes more imperative for them to look at their target markets, because if you don't target market right now, you're probably not going to get to that point. So it's important to look at longer term strategy and then define your target markets based on that. Step 1, again, part of step 1 in the target market. Again, if you don't start with a longer term strategy, you cannot build for the future and may limit yourself, maybe too short-sighted, and you may hit up against a couple of breakdowns that could have been avoided. Again, no need to get this perfect, but the most important thing is to start, and start small. If you're just starting out looking at this, don't try to conquer Rome in 1 day. Rome was never conquered in 1 day. It was sacked in 1 day, but it was never conquered in 1 day. You got to start somewhere though, and then build up. You want to set aside time a little bit every day or if you're a full-time business, at some point every day where you're looking at your target markets and building, looking at researching target markets, looking at where you can focus more better, looking at your current target markets, researching, interviewing people. Programs we train people how to interview your customers in a way that makes it relevant for them, but also useful for you, so you can use that information in your marketing. Step two, make clear offers. So some of you have offers or packages or products or services that are extremely complicated. And by the time you're explaining them, people are already tired and falling asleep. Now, some of you may have complicated offerings, but you want to make sure that you're only offering the information that compels people, but also informs them in an integrous manner. So you want to make those offers very clear. The more simple they are, the shorter they are, and and if you feel good about how you present it, and you're clear that it's going to make a difference for your target market, then you will start building up your business in a very sweet and effective manner. Step three, start listing out your topics for webinars. Start creating your editorial calendar today. Just see, you want to trust your intuition to a certain point. Sometimes your intuition can lead you astray, but start with your intuition for now. What are the exciting topics that you think would fit for your markets or for your services that you offer? Just start listing out those webinars, and start with a list. Maybe aim for 20 topics for the next year, and start with that. Step four, start thinking about designing your simple funnel. What could you offer as a free gift for your for your opt-in site? Sometimes what we do is we have people opt in for a free gift and then immediately offer the webinar. Sometimes that works a lot better for some markets. Sometimes it's just better to offer the webinar right off and then offer a free gift later on. Or you offer a session or packages. But in what sequence are you going to do this? That's important to really start understanding and designing right now. Step five, look to automate. Now, what do I mean by this? Some of you already have webinar systems and marketing systems, but you see, it's important to understand how you can automate. And this is a lesson that's really been great for me as well, as I learned to automate my business. But if you capture how you're doing things right now, and as you improve your systems right now, if you get to the point where your webinar systems, like a lot of my systems are actually working, I don't have to do much about it. My teams run it, or there are computerized systems that run the systems. Really, literally, Bill and I don't have to do much except just check the numbers. But you want to look to how you can further automate so that this is important to understand, so that you in 5 years, 10 years out from now don't have to work so hard. And your systems can handle it. As long as you keep fine-tuning the systems, that's all you have to do. So when you follow these kinds of strategies and tactics, once I just described, what I feel, and I've seen since 1991 without much exception, that people tend to get a lot happier and a lot less stressed. And those of you who are on the computer right now see the real photographs of my clients, most of which are taken after they work with me. This is the world I'm inviting you to. It's a world where there's happiness and a lot less stress and more focus and more acceleration towards the vision that you want to create. So I don't know why all of you showed up, but I know some of you are certainly tired of trying different marketing tactics without a clear vision strategy. And you're looking for a clear vision and strategy, and you're tired of being overwhelmed and feeling stuck. And you want to feel clear confident about your webinar systems or any other marketing systems that you have. And deep down in your heart, you know this is your time. And you know that you're competent, you know that you're good at what you do. And all that may be missing is a solid, customized plan and someone who can really help guide you along the way. And this is your time, your results. When I first hired my first coach in 1991, he charged me $1,000 a month, but I knew it was my time. I knew I had to do it. I knew I wanted to do it. I had to do it. I only made about $48,000 in my full-time job at that time, but I knew I wanted to break this mold of what I taught myself to be. I knew I could go bigger, greater than that. And my invitation again is to that world. So the obvious question is, how do I make all this work and this the distinctions that I presented today? How can you make that work in your own life, in your own business, in your own style? And what I tell people is, you can do there are two options. You can do what's called long-term suffering, which is what most people do. They tolerate some of the things that are not working. I'll get to that someday, somewhere. My ship will come in and everything will be fine. Usually the ship never comes in. That's consistent overwhelm, inconsistent results, and incremental results maybe at best. The world I'm inviting you to is the other option, which is long-term joy, where you get clarity daily, focus daily, traction and breakthrough. The investment you have to make, though, is that somewhere you're going to make a decision that you want to really do something different. So involve an investment of some time and money and energy. And, it's the price you have to pay or the investment you have to make. But for me, that's a worthy investment. It's always been a worthy investment. And so I'm going to invite you to really look at a system that's going to work for you, that's customized to what you need, your circumstances, your target markets, and your desired levels of goals. And it's important to define the game for you. If you don't know what the game is for you, where you want to go in the next 5 or 10 years, or the next 1 year at least, the score you want to have, how you're going to win the game, and with a plan to get it. If you don't have any of these, then it's difficult to get into long-term joy. So the question is for you is, what is your gap? And the gap is, where you want to be and where you are now. And Bill and I are committed that you really close this gap as soon as possible. The biggest gap is usually due to fear, the fear of things not working, trying something and it's not working. And the truth is, the only way past that familiar place is to take action. Dive in, do something without breaking the farm, without breaking the bank, without doing something irrational, but to try it out, try something, move forward, And that was the choice I was faced with. I was either going to be stuck and stay stuck in a cubicle. And I enjoyed my work. I loved the company that hired me, loved me too. But myself personally, I knew there was something bigger. And I was either going to be stuck in that world or move past. And for me, I knew that jumping in was probably the right thing to do. I felt the fear, but I'd been there before. I dealt with stuff before. I knew I could get through it. And once you have taken a step like that, it's a lesson for life. It doesn't mean that you're going to be irrational. It doesn't mean that you won't fail or make mistakes. But you see, you can either shrink from your fear, or you can face it and learn to have it be someone that you can deal with. Your fear, if you the person personify your fear, someone you can deal with and be with and work with. Sometimes that fear may be informational, maybe good information. But to learn to distinguish between bad and good information and still make the decision, that's important to learn as well. So my invitation today is that we're offering a free session with me, one-on-one on the phone. And, it's the intention of this 1 hour or so is to address your biggest challenges and roadblocks and help you clarify a 1-year plan for the next 1 year to get you to the next stage in your business and in your life, primarily in your business. It's completely free, and there are limited spaces. I'm pretty much full for this week, and I think pretty much full for next week as well. I have a few slots available for next week that we can schedule you for. But you have to apply for this session. And how you apply is you go to yourvipss.com. And that's yourvipss.com. And on this session 2, we'll help you customize what we talked about here to you specifically in your own life, in your own business. Like I said, we'll come up with a 1-year plan as well, and how you can make that work and start creating a pipeline that makes sense to you, that converts people and creates more business for you. Again, there's no charge for this. And those of you who are interested in our programs will share with you the program if that's something you're interested in. But the intention is really to help you create that 1-year plan. Why is this useful for us? Because even if you don't do business with us, at some point you probably will, because you'll see the value of what we offer. And there's a good number of people who want to do business with us. But like I said, if you're interested in our program, let us know during the session, and we'll talk about more about how we can work together in the longer term. Again, you want to go to the website, those of you on the phone, not on the computer. That is yourvipss.com. That's yourvipss.com. So yourvipss.com. You want to fill out the form there and ask your question, fill out the details. As much detail as you can give us would be great, would be really appreciated, because that will help us in approving your session or not. If you're approved, we will let you know within 24 business hours, and we'll schedule a time. My team or I will call you and actually set up a time. I like to do that sometimes because I like to build a personal relationship with people that could be my clients. And so you might get a call from me to schedule a time once you are approved. Okay, I've got a string of questions here. I'm going to do my best to get through all of this here, the time that we have. Okay, first question. In your program, you know from the previous, our program is called the VIP Academy. So in your program, the question is, in your program, will you help me design the sales funnel and go through the details? Yes, absolutely. That's part of the intention of the program. In fact, within the first 4 months or so, or far less than that, we can get you at least a first draft sales funnel and start testing it and refining the design on that sales funnel. So yeah, we can absolutely do that. And you want to, again, make sure you apply in the strategy session and indicate that that's what you want to talk about in the strategy session so we can discuss that with you, okay? Second question here. I'm not sure if I have the right personality for webinars. I'm kind of shy and introverted. You know what? A lot of people don't believe this, but I'm actually an introvert myself. In my private, quiet moments, I rather curl up with a book or be by myself. I'm rarely like out there talking to. I'm not a partier. I'm not anywhere close to that. It's something I have to generate. It's not fake. It's something I have to generate. I really love being on webinars and being with people, but I'm not really, I'm not a huge extrovert by any measure. So it's not really a function of personality, I assure you. It's a function of your target markets. It's a function of how well you present. I had a client a couple of years back. It was a Buddhist monk, very, very shy guy. He would mumble in his live presentation. People could barely hear him sometimes. But boy, at the end of his short 30-minute presentation, people will be running to the back of the room to buy his products. He sells these health products for people. From a Buddhist monk. It was very, very quiet. You don't have to be loud and obnoxious to sell. Really, you don't have to, and if you are, that's fine too, because it doesn't, you want to bring a personality to it to a certain point, but really what you want to do is make sure you have the right target markets, the right sales funnel. You want to make sure your system works more than anything else. I've had ups and downs in my marketing. I know it's a function of my team and lack of leadership. Will your program help me? Yeah, absolutely. And we have other programs that can help you with that as well. But you definitely want to fill out the strategy session form and tell me more about what you're seeing that's not working so we can talk about it in the strategy session. So make sure you do that. Okay. And that's a very common thing for a lot of people. So, in case you feel bad about it, don't. It's very normal and very common for most people who experience difficulties in their team and their leadership. But there are clear distinctions that you can use to help you move through that. And it takes a bit of work, but it can be done. Just being honest with you, it can be done. These webinar systems sound like a lot of work. How do I manage it? And I understand that. I feel for you, because when you look under the hood, there's quite a lot of components that you may have to look at. Now, when you look at all the components, some of those components may not pertain to you. So that may be a source of solace for you, perhaps. But the other thing that will help you is if you break it down and chunk it down into pieces, it becomes a lot easier. And you see, my background is being a systems engineer. I can really help people break things down into more uncomplicated modules, very simple I just did a session with one of my clients yesterday. She came in very frazzled. She's a relatively new client. And within about 15 minutes, broke it down. Her stress levels went down from a level 8 down to about a level 3. And, she's excited again to get stuff done. And she probably will get a lot of that done because it's far less things that she has to get done. And it'll probably bring her more money and cash flow in the next 3 months, almost for sure. So it's really a function of how you break it down and chunk it down, to reduce your overwhelm. And then pace yourself. You don't want to do everything overnight. You don't have to do all that. It's not unnecessary, I assure you. And it's not realistic either. So you want to really pay attention to that. Okay, let's see. Um, got other questions here. Don, let's see. Does your program also include advising your clients on specific equipment one might need? Does your program guide those of us who are accomplished public speakers but not so much good at the internet? Yeah, absolutely. On both those accounts, I have the technical experience. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by specific equipment, but if you're a speaker, then I'm pretty sure I can help you. I think I know what you mean. I think you mean online software, etc. Absolutely, yeah. We can. I've used a lot and evaluated a lot of the technology out there, and I've been doing this for quite a number of years. Bill is also my compatriot who leads the programs with me. Very highly skilled in content marketing and different tools that we've used. We've consulted a lot of other leaders in the domain of Twitter, social media, and LinkedIn as well. And so we know quite a lot. And the good thing is we can apply the technology to what you need specifically in your public speaking. Public speaking is getting a lot more tricky. You got to really, it's actually quite a highly mobile market is what I call it, because it's changing so much. People are becoming more selective about speakers, so you got to be really good with your internet marketing, but also brand yourself pretty well and make sure you do a good outreach and automate it so you can create more speaking opportunities for yourself. But to answer your question, Don, in a straightforward manner, yes, absolutely, no doubt about it. Again, make sure you fill out the strategy form if you feel so inclined, which I'm sure you do, and give me more details of some of the questions you're looking at, and we'll set up a time to talk. Okay, so I appreciate your question. Thank you very much. All right, lots more questions here. Let's see. I'm a chiropractor, and I'm trying to define and figure out my pipeline. How can I do this? We've worked with chiropractors in the past as well, and I appreciate the question. I really do feel for you because chiropractic can be competitive depending on how you position yourself. So the trick is really partly branding, how you position yourself based on your strengths, and then appeal to target markets. Define your target markets. If you've been in business for a while, we could probably analyze some of your current client data and figure out where your target markets really are. You're probably sitting on a gold mine, I assure you, the longer you've been in business, because you have a lot of data that we just need to look at in a more intelligent manner. I'm not questioning intelligence at all. I'm just saying you can increase the intelligence on it to look at it. And then in the short term, we could also probably, I'm not promising you this, but probably find some low-hanging fruit in your current clientele and help you move forward in that as well. So again, I appreciate your question. And this is from email. Thank you very much for that question. Next question here. Let's see. Okay. Will the webinar work for products as well? Yes, but with some exceptions. Again, we'll need to, what I would recommend is fill in your, again, the strategy session, I keep harping, but it's the truth. I'm trying to help everybody as many people as possible here. You need to give me more details. What kind of product, what your current markets are, because it really depends on the market. If the market is amenable to that kind of stuff, then yes. The market's not, then probably not, that wouldn't make sense. I mean, you're trying to market to engineers, webinars may not be the best thing to do, unless it's certainly something technical, helps them create more fun in their work or something like that, or it's a distraction to them. I know engineers, so it really depends on your market. And what we look at first is your market and then determine if you should go online or offline. Chances are you still want to do some online regardless. But if it makes sense to do it offline, then you should pursue offline marketing. It just makes sense. But again, if you want to automate at some level, you still want to do some online marketing. So I hope that makes sense for you. Does your program, the coaching program that you talk about, how does that provide accountability? Yes, well, accountability is a big part of that program. For 1 year, you get 2 long phone calls with me one-on-one per month. You also get short phone calls, which I return within 24 business hours. You also get daily emails Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of every week, except for some weeks when I'm on vacation. But for most of the year, almost every week, we are in touch. And we're not just in touch talking in a social manner, but we're actually looking at accountability, not from scolding fashion, because I don't operate that way, but more from looking at what makes sense to focus on next. So you may have missed some things, but let's move on and see how we can get back on track. Getting back on track should be the focus of accountability. So those daily emails are really designed to make sure you stay on track. So that's how it works in the accountability. Hope that answers your question. Let's see. Shuko Faye, I think she's called Faye. Hi, Faye. I'm not in tech world. I'm a mental health doctor. I want to learn how I can find the pipelines for marketing to my small business. Thanks. Yes, absolutely. It's a good place to start from. And the basics still apply, Faye. And how you want to do it, I'm glad you're asking the question because it's really the $1,000,000 question that I feel everybody should ask before they start a business and as they start a business is to determine your target markets. Once you understand your target markets, you can define the pipelines and start researching to find pipelines. And then test out your markets by doing some smart experiments to test out some of the pipelines. So if you're a mental health doctor, well, it really depends on what mental health means. I've met different and worked with different mental health doctors in the past. Some people have worked with highly specialized modalities. Some people have worked in a more general sense. Either way, we can help you. But I'll need more data on exactly what you do, etc. What I would recommend again, Faye, is fill out the strategy form. Give me more details specifically on the modalities you're working at, what kind of clients you've worked with in the past. And it's perfectly fine if you're not in the tech world. I have someone who's actually a couple of people who are in their 80s, believe it or not, it's the truth, who are starting a business. They're not very tech savvy, but boy, they're very savvy in their experience and what they provide. They're really good people. And, we'll pace you along in learning the technology and then eventually hiring other people to do that kind of work. Okay. So fear not, Faye, it'll all work out. Make sure you fill out that strategy form. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just saying that's probably what makes sense in order for me to help you. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. If you have more questions, feel free to ask. Let's see. I'm feeling very disorganized, but I also, and mostly about my team and my hiring, but I also need help in my marketing and sales. Will the program help? Yes, absolutely. It's a very comprehensive program. It's a program I wish I had really when I first started out. Being very honest here, I wish I had it, and there are not many programs like that out there. Very comprehensive, and we'll work with you with your team issues as well. Again, make sure you fill out the strategy form so that you have more details. More details you give me, the more I'll be able to help you and give you, set up a strategy form session if it makes sense. Okay, if I can't make a strategy session, I'll at least give you a response by email. If you ask some specific questions, I'll do my best to help you. All right. Let's see. Will your VIP program really work? What makes your VIP program different? That's a good question. Will it really work? Well, my experience since 1991 is that what I designed has been based on a lot of experience and looking at what works with coaching people, but also works in business. So will it work? There's no guarantees. I cannot make a guarantee legally or otherwise, philosophically either. But this is what I can say. If you do the work, there's a really good chance. In other words, if you do the work that I assign to you, and if you're coachable, then you have no reason to expect failure. And I really do mean that. Then the onus is on me in making sure that you are doing what you're saying, or my program doesn't work, which I haven't seen that work. Everybody who's done the work, who's worked with me, has produced results. And that's not it's a completely truthful claim, not a claim, it's a total fact. And it makes sense because see, statistically speaking, if you work with me for that time period over the year, and if you are interacting and refining your plan on a daily basis, it's a good chance statistically you're going to hit results. It's just almost pure mathematics. The other part of this is how well you're willing to bring yourself to the game. And, if you're willing to give me information and work with me and take the coaching, then there's a good chance we're going to hit some really good success and do what Bill and I call some really good damage in your market. By good damage, I mean you're going to produce some great results and make an impact, a good positive impact in your market. Okay. Um, you mentioned fear being a stop. I have a fear of moving forward. It stopped me many times in the past. Do you have any recommendations? Yeah. I feel for you, because I felt the fear many times in my business and my previous career as well, especially when it came to the point where I knew that something that I was being offered was really great. The greater the offering, sometimes the more the fear, because boy, if it works, things could really change. Sometimes it's that fear of change that we have. But you see, what really helps is to look at the vision in the future. And my coach that I first hired, he always kept insisting, listen, where are you going to be 1 year out from now, 5 years out from now? Focus on that. And your short-term issues and how your brain responds in the short term will probably disappear the more you focus on the long term. So you see, you may have to make some risky jumps and dives here and there in the short term. But see, what it's not going to make any sense to do so unless you have a good long-term vision. And if you don't have one, then get on a conversation with me and we'll help you create one. And I do mean co-create one with you. I'm not going to give you one, but if we have a very focused discussion on what your future could look like, that's going to be more valuable than staying stuck in the fear. And I mean that in all respect, because fear is not something that can be easily circumvented. And I understand that. I really do feel for that. I've been there. I'm still in there in some ways because I myself feel the fear in certain things that I want to grow in and take my business to the next level. It's just normal. It's just what happens to people. So you want to treat it in a normal way. You're a human being. But where you want to be extraordinary as a human being, and what I invite you to look to the vision in the future. And look from there. If you don't have one, then get intentional about creating one. We can help you create that vision as well and help you create that vision that will pull you out of your fear and help you move forward. Charlotte Jacobs, when she was so afraid. I felt for her, because she was stuck. She just came out of acupuncture school. She was stuck with stuff, wasn't sure where she was going. She was busy, burnt out, frustrated, resigned, and all I kept pointing to her to were two things: mathematics and the vision. The mathematics part was statistically, if she did what I asked her to do, a really good probability that she's going to hit her goals. Now, I could say that to her because the math that she presented me with was obvious. The other thing is the vision. See, the question you want to ask is, you want to stay stuck in your fear, or you want to stay stuck in a vision that's going to call you forward? There are two ways you can be stuck. You got to choose. But the important thing for you to ask this question, I won't reveal the name, is that you got to choose. The worst place to be in is on the fence. If you're on the fence trying to choose, it's not going to serve you. It's better to choose a yes or a no for whatever you're dealing with rather than have one other pending decision in your life. You have too many things going on and too many opportunities that are calling to you in the future to be stuck in staying on the fence. If you're staying on the fence and you have a habit of doing so, that may be the first habit to break. If you break that habit, and I acknowledge for some of you may be a hard habit, it's not really a hard habit to break. All you have to do is just make a decision, and you will feel free. And it's that freedom that will drive you forward because you can create a vision at any point and make a choice. I hope that helps. I've seen other models out there in coaching. I'm getting confused about what I should really work on. Yeah, I totally feel for you as well. There's so many other programs out there that promise all kinds of stuff. And listen, a lot of those programs are really good programs. Okay, and I've done quite a number of those too because I like to, work with different people who have made sense. My current coach is Brenda Normand. She's got a great program. And there are pluses and minuses for all these programs. And Brenda's certainly a great program. There are other programs out there that are really great as well. What you want to do is look at how you can customize what these models are to what makes sense to you. So the advantage of working with me, if that's your primary question, I feel it may be, is that I'm going to help you customize all this other knowledge and pick and choose the best of all these other models and make sure it's pertinent to you. Because if it's not pertinent to you, then it's going to be like fitting a square peg in a round hole. It's not going to fit. It's not going to work. So you got to find something that's going to fit for you or make it fit. But making it fit sometimes can be difficult. You got to start with what you really need, what your target market needs, and work from there. That's sensible design. It makes more sense. It creates a Mercedes Benz rather than a Yugo. Those of you remember a Yugo, I mean, it's not a bad car. It's not the most best designed car. You want to pick a car that's well designed for you, or design your own. Better to design your own than have a car that doesn't work for you. Some of you are trying to go for the Mercedes Benz, but it may not be a car that fits for you. Maybe better to design your own car that works in your business. Better to design your own business and try to have some other model that may not fit for you. I hope that makes sense. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So again, that's all the questions I have so far. There's some other questions. Those other questions I will answer by email. Okay. So thank you for those questions, but I'll answer by email. Thank you again for the questions. I really do appreciate it. I respect everybody's time here. And thank you all for the opportunity to make a difference for you. This is what I love to do. It's my passion. I hope some of that passion's rubbed off on you and seen something for your own self. I'm sure it has, based on some of the comments I've been getting so far. Again, thank you very much. And make sure that you apply for the Your VIP SS session. You want to go to yourvipss.com and apply for the free session with me. Again, thank you for the opportunity to make a difference with you. Hope to see you again in future webinars, if not on the strategy session and being a client in our one-year program. Those of you, some of you have asked about the one-year program and how to sign up for it right away. If you're really serious about it, go ahead and email me and let me know my email. I'll put it in the chat box here in the next minute or so. And you can email me directly about the program. But the best way to do that, honestly, is to get on a strategy session, and so we can talk about it and make sure it's a good fit for you. Okay. So I think that's it. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Again, make sure you go to yourvipss.com and apply there for the free session. Thank you and have a great day.